The Preemie started kindergarten this week. He did beautifully. I, however, had a slightly rougher time. While the world sees a happy, smiling kindergartner, I can't help but see my tiny baby hooked to tubes and wires, fighting for his life after emergency surgery. None standing over his bed praying for him, or about 8 billion other moments that led us to the kindergarten door. You see, back in September 2009, I begged God for a miracle. Begged. I remember the moment crystal clear, as if it happened just yesterday. The night before, Luke had stopped breathing in the neonatal intensive care unit at just 8 days old. The nurses and doctors resuscitated him, and emergency workers transported him to the local children's hospital. Following that ambulance did not seem real, but it was. Miraculously, he made it through the night and then quickly started deteriorating after lunch. My husband Scott and I had to make a decision about surgery, hours ago. The surgeon and neonatologists were tapping their feet outside the door, and Scott and I stood over Luke's tiny incubator. "I cannot let him go," I cried to Scott, laying my head near Luke's beating heart. "God cannot ask this of me. I am too weak," I reiterated. With tears filling Scott's eyes, he looked at me and said, "We have to let him go, Kathryn, and trust that God is going to give him back." And then we sobbed. The coming hours, days, weeks, months, and years have been filled with countless specialist visits. At one time, Luke had 12. Therapy appointments for speech, physical, and feeding, more surgeries, there were 7 total, and hospital visits, I lost count. The dream of normal seemed like not only a faraway place, but an unattainable one that every other family enjoyed but us. Of course, that's not true, I know now, but back 5 years ago, it was our reality. It's really impossible for me to describe the intense amount of fear and worry that I carried deep in the recesses of my heart, where only God could see the truth. The tests that I hoped he would pass, but he failed. The procedures that had us both in tears. The nurses I hugged, probably a little too hard, because the news was just so sucky. The doctors whose hands I squeezed because I was once again trusting them with my son's life. The marriage that nearly fell apart and found itself in counseling. The kids who cried because mommy was leaving, again, for the hospital. The PTSD that reared its ugly head at the most inopportune times. No one fully understands, yet my greatest hope is that another mother will never have to endure what we did. No one wishes for prematurity to happen to them. No one. The days leading up to Luke's first day of school had their ups and downs. I mostly pushed my feelings of worry and concern to the side and busied myself with getting everyone ready. Backpacks lined up, lunches packed, supplies bought. It's easy to bury yourself in the busyness of a household of 6 children. But the night before school, while Scott and I were praying nightly prayer, the floodgates opened, and it was ugly, but necessary. If I had done that to Luke on the first day of school, the straitjackets would have been ready in a flash. Not kidding. Scott reassured me that all would be well, that we would walk in those doors together like we'd done the last 5 years. On that bright, sunny, warm morning in August 2015, when we walked to Luke's classroom, every memory of Luke's journey bubbled to the surface. Every hurdle, every accomplishment, every late night and every early morning, the throwing up, the feeding setbacks, the sensory challenges, the first words, the first steps, the first everything, even though it was almost always delayed. There it was. As I looked at him, so confidently hanging his backpack and then sitting at his table to write his name, I was amazed at God's love. Every last bit of the grace and mercy that he had poured into our family was smiling right back at me. Y'all, it was beautiful, and it was hard. To every preemie and NICU mom who wonders if she'll get her miracle, let this be proof that it happens. Not always, but it happens. And to those of you who wonder when you pray for a medically fragile child, if your prayers matter, they do. They really do. Happy first day of school, Luke. It's time for your great new adventure.